Welcome to today's edition of The Blazing Grace Show with Jason Graves, Mike Janung, and Julie Dozier. Blazing Grace covers important life-affecting issues with grace-filled answers. Here are your hosts, Jason, Mike, and Julie.
Are you a wife of a sex addict and struggling? Well, today is your show because we're back in the studio with our wives panel looking at issues and understanding where they're coming from. So we're going to back to them in just a second here. But Julie, Mike, it's great to have you back here. It's great to see your smiling faces. Anything new on the Lakers front, Mike?
Are you trying to bum me out or what?
Kobe still wearing purple and gold?
For a little while,
okay.
I guess.
All right.
I hear the Sonics are shopping for a new venue, too.
Right, I know. Don't remind me. Now, Julie, I just have to bring to your attention that you're Houston Astros, just sort of to bring you into the bantering of sports around here. Just smeared my Seattle Mariners. I believe you killed us like 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
Okay, so you owe me, all right? But listen, we want to let you guys know out there that we got a couple of announcements here. Things coming up that you might want to pay attention to and be aware of. Are you a couple struggling with marital issues, or are you dealing with stuff that you need to work through? Would you like to come out to sunny Colorado in one of the nicest parts of the year to do some work with Julie Dozier? Well, she's having a marital intensive in September. And so for more information about that, call 719-266-6636. Also, I'm doing an Everyman's Battle, a monthly Everyman's Battle, coming up the middle of July, the 13th and the 15th, in Nashville. So I think I may stop by the Grand Ole Opry and go see, I don't know what else I can see. But come join us if you'd like to. But ladies, thank you for coming back and joining us. We have Amy and Shanna back on with us on the show. So welcome, ladies.
Hi. Thank you.
Boy, it's been a long week, hasn't it? So, listen, let's kind of recap where you all are coming from. Amy, you were married about a year and a half and had a 4-month-old baby when you found out about your husband's sexual addiction, and he was into pornography, adultery, I don't know, maybe even masturbation, and it took you good, prostitutes. It took you about 10 months to get into really some solid treatment. And so, you're coming to the show with a lot of experience, and you're seeing how recovery works for wives, and you're also seeing the redemptive properties of how, what it's like to give back. So we'll have some questions for you in a second here. Shanna, I think you were married about 15 years before you found out. Is that right?
No, I found out, which part did I find out about a lot?
Which time, right?
Yes.
Which time, right. But you went through a lot of, your husband went through a lot of denial, so he had some honesty problems. You worked through a lot of shame to actually follow through on your gut and to follow through with getting the help and sort of respecting yourself and taking care of yourself and, owning your own recovery. And so we got a couple questions for you. Julie, why don't you fire off?
Well, Shanna, I wanted to kind of follow up on something that you were saying at the end in our last session, is that you felt like your husband was doing a lot of denial, but you knew that something was going on, and so you decided to just have that checked out. And I wanted just to say something really to the audience about that, is that sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, well, I don't want to be doing that checking behavior, that codependency, but they haven't gotten anything that has allowed their spouse to actually say, yes, this is what I did. And some people won't unless they're actually found out. And so I don't see that as in that initial stage as, oh, we can't do the checking behavior, because I think that you need to know what you're dealing with before you can know what to do about it. And so some people get kind of confused about that. But you were saying that you did actually have something checked out, and I want to kind of differentiate between what I'm talking about and what and later on in recovery, when you continue to do that checking and you're obsessing. Those are two different things. But you do need to know what you're dealing with, and so tell us a little bit about that, Shanna.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that in our case, it was an absolutely necessary step in order for things to really start, moving the way that, for us to move towards recovery. Because at the point where, I confronted him with the evidence that I had, there was nowhere for him to go. And he was completely broken. I mean, he really went through even a physical reaction of, finding out, and it was very, very traumatic. And
physical reaction, can you be a little bit more specific?
Well, there was a lot of, obviously there was intense crying and a lot of, he threw up all night long. I think he was just so in denial himself. He kept convincing himself that he was not doing this and he was going to be able to get out of that. And I think all along he had wanted to stop, being in these relationships with other women, and felt just a tremendous amount of shame as he came home, so that when I did tell him, it was the bubble burst, and he wept all night. He could not sleep, and there was just intense times of begging and crying and pleading with me, because I think he knew that I was going to take some pretty drastic measures at that point.
And what were those measures? Did you set a boundary at that point?
Well, in all honesty, initially I thought for sure we were going to get a divorce. I mean, that's where my mind went. I just was so hurt by, the years of verbal abuse, and then to top it all off, just having been just lied to. And when I was, pregnant and, with my second child and, raising two children pretty much by myself, I felt so angry about it. But I think that's not what God had in mind. And I didn't use the word divorce that evening. And I just told him that we needed some time to heal. So I asked him to move out. I told him that we needed to separate. And not really knowing what God was going to do, I just told him, I said, I'm just going to have to let God guide me through this, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm just going to have to, go through my grieving process. And I felt I had been, raped. I mean, I felt just completely disfigured with pain. And I just told him, I said, God's going to have to heal all that.
Now, a lot of wives would sort of make that the exit point, Shanna. And this question is really for both of y'all, but talk about the times where you just wanted to quit and want to just give up, get out, not even look at your own stuff.
Amy, you want to talk? Or
Well, for me, it was the first year, definitely right after finding out, and there was just so much pain, and I had no really healthy tools for knowing how to deal with that. But I did have a therapist say that they recommend not making any major changes for the first year or maybe even 2 of recovery. And now looking back, I'm very glad I had that advice, and I'm very glad that I didn't do that.
Amen. There's been a lot of fruit in your life because of it, hasn't there?
Yes, and also I realize now that I feel a little bit healthier. I wasn't in the right mind frame to make any major changes. That would not have been in my best interest.
Right, absolutely. I mean, when is giving up on a marriage ever, in the best interest? I mean, even if your spouse, male or female, has had an adulterous relationship, certainly biblically, that's one of the only provisions for for divorce. However, it's not a directive. I think God still can repair a marriage, as evidenced by what's going on in Amy and Shanna's lives in marriage, and that's His heart. God hates divorce. So, Julie, you look like you got a question bubbling up inside you.
It's just bubbling.
Okay.
And this is for either or both of y'all. I wanted to ask y'all, what was the hardest part of recovery so far, and how did you handle that?
Amy, you're so good at going first.
My answer to that is the same. It's the first year, definitely the first year, just because you're learning that all of your coping behaviors are not things that you're really supposed to be doing, so you're trying not to use your coping behaviors, and you haven't learned yet the new healthy behaviors. It's just a very difficult time, plus all the grieving.
Shanna?
I would say it's the same. I mean, it's... I guess you don't even know what you're doing wrong when you start into recovery. What you think is right is actually a lot of times, wrong thinking. And obviously, as you're going through the pain of, the discovery, it's just, you're just confused. I mean, just to try to figure out what's right, what's wrong. But it's just being patient, being patient to let God, teach us things. And for me, that's been kind of what has happened.
Mm-hmm. Ladies, there's a lot of Christian men out there who would say, there's nothing wrong with porn, it's just pictures, and I'm not really hurting anybody. And can you both describe for us what you saw happen to your husband's character and his walk with God as a result of their getting messed up with porn and sex addiction?
Begin awkward silence now. Amy, you want to start us off?
Well, I can say as a victim of that it is certainly painful. And I remember trying to deny myself that it was causing me pain when it absolutely did. I definitely saw my husband just in general dehumanizing people, not even just women, but people in general. And it really just made him a detached, less intimate person.
Right. Right. It is really, pornography, sexual addiction, and idolatry in general really is that. It's the death of intimacy. You're talking about the objectification of people. How can a human being who's full of the communicable traits of God, the ability to sense, to feel, to love, how can a person like that be in relationship with an object? So, therefore, when we make people objects, there is no intimacy in that. There's only false intimacy. And so, yeah, great point, Amy. Thank you. Shannon, what do you have to say about that?
Well, the sad thing is that I can say for us that my husband, he so longed for intimacy, for, deep connectedness. That's what he was talking about. Yeah. But at the same time, he was engaging in all these activities that were completely breaking, anything that would bring that real close and close intimacy. So, I could say that, distance, I felt a lot of distancing and as far as his walk with the Lord, it just became pretty absent, I guess, in his life.
Were you guys going to church during this whole time when you discovered?
Yes.
We were too.
Wow. How was the church? I'm reading Mike's mind. How helpful was the church to you in your process? Be honest.
Mine was actually very unhelpful. I had a lot of people say just things out of ignorance. They didn't know how to handle it, and they didn't really understand the addiction or the depth of what the problem was.
Right. Sad, huh? But, we're not ever out there to condemn the church. We are the church. But just like in society, there's just a lot of people that don't have answers.
We need more awareness on the subject. That's why this show will definitely be helpful.
Oh, well, especially since, God always used the church as the primary vessel of grace in every problem in our culture, in our world, in history. And why would it be any different with sexual addiction?
And I'm wondering, Amy, what were some of the things that people at the church said to you that were not helpful? And then what were some things that you wish that you could have heard from the church?
In my situation, I really needed compassion during that first few months and year of finding out. I had a lot of people who knew enough to know that I had a lot of brokenness as well that I needed to deal with.
Right.
And they decided to tell me that instead of just saying, sorry, I'm sorry that happened to you, I'm sorry that you're going through that. I really could have used a lot of compassion from my church.
Right. One of you said at the end of last week's show that you had a great need to be around others in pain, and I can relate to that because I just get tired of the facade and the superficial and the shallow, and I can't explain it, but I love being around people who are real, who are broken, who aren't hiding or covering up their pain or their messes, and I respect and appreciate my brothers and sisters who are like that far more than I do, those who are pretending they got it all together. So I just want to thank both of you for coming on and being real with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Shannon? What was your experience with church, and how helpful or not helpful was that for you?
Well, initially, we were actually brand new in a new town, so we didn't have a lot of relationships, in our new city at church. So that was kind of hard. The other relationships from where we moved from, the other church we had, I felt that people were emailing me that, after a week of being separated, that it was now time to get back together. And I felt, they were quoting verses that, that it was time, and that we could only be separated for a time. But I felt very much like my pain was dismissed.
Right.
And I just it was very hard. I felt judged, and I felt that I was doing something unchristian by staying separated.
Right. It was almost like they wanted to be, they were more concerned with their own comfortability than with your heart. And that's sad. It's hard to even say that or hear that because it's icky. But look, let's face it. We are uncomfortable when we see other people, other Christians especially as believers in the church, in awkward, unbiblical even situations. And we want to just fix it, don't we? Don't we? But when people's hearts are on the line, we have to be sensitive to that, don't we, Julie?
Yes. And what's kind of interesting is it could have been some of their codependency wanting to fix it that was reaching out to you when that was the very thing that you were working on yourself.
Good point. Yeah.
But one thing I have to say is probably more so for my husband. He has felt a tremendous amount of rejection as he became exposed. And, I didn't, shout what happened to us on the rooftops. I was relatively private about it because I felt like God would be able to heal us more if I could be somewhat discreet. I didn't want, everybody in the neighborhood to know what had happened to us because they would only shame him. But even those that had, walked, the road, with us for years, in the church, as they found out about it, they just pretty much dropped him like a hot potato. And that was really hard for him. And even to this day, I would say that he kind of struggles with intimate relationships within the church. He longs for it, but I think he has been truly pained, and he's probably a little afraid to become vulnerable again because of now this whole other baggage that has been exposed.
Right, and that's a good point. I mean, getting help for your husband, first of all, it's not something that you can do. You can get help for yourself as a wife. And you could pray that your husband will get help and certainly maybe do a little research and offer him some options. But in the end, I get calls, Julie, you probably do all the time, from wives. My husband's, addicted to pornography. What do I do? How can he get help? Well, he's got to pick up the phone. He's got to do it.
Yes.
I won't schedule an appointment for a husband that was made by a wife. I just won't do that,
Right.
Secondly, you have to be discreet because while he's your husband, it's still his information. And you can certainly talk to whoever you want about your story. But, yeah, you're right. You have to find somebody that is going to be trustworthy, that is going to be ready, and that somebody that's going to be committed to confidentiality, all right? And it goes along that whole lines of, listen, you don't throw your pearls before swines. In other words, pigs don't have a use for pearls, okay? And that doesn't mean that people are pigs, but swines don't have. So you don't see too many jewelry wearing swines. Is what I'm trying to get at. All right. Well, listen, if you're just tuning in, we're meeting with a panel of wives whose husbands are dealing with sexual addiction in various forms, and so. If you are a new listener to Blazing Grace, of course, we are listener-supported, so if you'd like to help us out with a tax-deductible contribution, that is more than welcome. And goodness, wouldn't it be great if people even committed to, if we had, what did we figure out a while back there? If we had every listener, something like 4,000 listeners, give $20 a month, that's like what did we figure, $80,000 a month? Think of all the places we could take this show to. We don't make any money, the three of us, doing this show. This is a service to our clients, and it's something we pay for out of our own pockets. But maybe you'd like to share and help us in that mission. If so, contact Mike at blazinggrace.org, or go online to blazinggrace.org and look for the support link there. So back to the guests here. Amy, Shanna, I'm kind of curious about, we talked a little last time about redemptive vision stuff, and certainly this is a way to give back here, and God is redeeming some of the pain and certainly some of the work that you've done in recovery. But where do you see yourself in your marriage in 5 to 10 years? You want to take that, Amy?
Yeah, and actually I did want to talk about that, because when I first got into recovery, I did not have a model for anyone who had made it through this. Everyone I saw was either in separation or divorce, and one of the things I wanted to say is, for me, in my situation, I have a husband now who is working a recovery program, and it's not perfect. We still have struggles with safety sometimes, or other issues, and now we're even having like normal marriage problems like communication. So
that's
which
a good sign.
But we are growing together. We're learning how to be intimate with each other. We're learning more intimacy with God, and I see our marriage flourishing. I see us even having a ministry together. We've talked about possibly whatever God has in store for us, doing something like that, like giving hope and helping people together.
Awesome. Praise God. How about you, Shanna?
Well, I think the recovery has truly changed me and has helped me just to become healthier.
Right.
And in that way, I feel better equipped to handle the challenges that come in our marriage. And I think the process of recovery, I has been one that I have completely cherished and embraced. I think for my husband, it's been a little bit harder, but he is very willing, because he has made a commitment to me to go through some of the things that to have counseling with Julie, and just to work on it in his way right now. And I'm going to be okay with that, like within certain parameters that I've set, that I've talked to him about. But for us, it's a little bit. We're not both kind of working exactly, along the same path, but, I'm trying to show a lot of grace and patience, and to continue to work on what God is showing me.
Yeah, it's exciting. And He's probably brought some people in your path along the way, or will. And along those lines, I get calls from wives, and sometimes they don't see the importance of things like, being involved in a group. Obviously, the group that you've been involved with together has been tremendous. But some people don't get that. They think they can do it in isolation. They can recover sort of in a vacuum, as it were. Or they just don't see why they need to do anything, because, after all, it's his problem. So, we have teleconference groups that meet, and so wives will sometimes will offer that to them, and they just, they don't get it. What can you say to the wife who's really struggling with embracing her own recovery, Amy?
Well, I can certainly see how she would feel that way, as far as not wanting to be in a group of people, because I had surrounded myself with so many unsafe people before I got into recovery. So I would say learn what a safe person is, and then find a safe group of people who you feel really comfortable with, and meet the criteria of being safe.
And how would you define, have you read that book, Safe People, by the way?
I haven't, no, but I have a little list in our Life Guide for Spouses that was very helpful for me.
That's the Melissa Haas one?
Yeah.
Great. So what are just some things off the top of your head that make a safe person? I mean, am I safe? Or?
I feel like you are so far, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I would say accepting you, are comfortable with your feelings, don't gossip about you, don't judge, don't try to fix your problem, don't treat you like you are a project of theirs. They're not using you to meet their need, are aware of their own brokenness, and I would say most of all are in relationship with God and sensitive to what the Holy Spirit is doing in your life.
And I know it's amazing when we did that exercising group how few people were in every group member's life that were actually safe.
Right. Yeah, it is. But people are becoming more and more safe, and it's because of people like you, Amy and Shannon. I want to thank you for being on the show here today. This past couple weeks here, we've unfortunately got to wrap up. But blessings to you, blessings to your husbands, and blessings to your families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
y'all for coming on.
Tune us in next week. We're excited to have you as part of the Blazing Grace family. And, of course, if there's any way we can be of service to you, please go to blazinggrace.org for plenty of articles, information, forums, you name it. Tune in next week. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Blazing Grace Show. We trust today's broadcast helps bring you closer to God and to what God desires for your life. Blazing Grace is a listener-supported mission intended to help listeners around the world. Your support is vital in keeping that mission alive. We ask you to prayerfully consider sending a tax-deductible gift to Blazing Grace. It would be gratefully appreciated. Send your monetary gift to Blazing Grace, P.O. Box 62521, Colorado Springs, Colorado 80962-2521. That's Blazing Grace, P.O. Box 62521, Colorado Springs, Colorado 80962-2521. Want to learn more about Blazing Grace? Find us on the internet at www.blazinggrace.org. That's BLAZINGGRACE.org/radio.htm. On that page, you'll find a downloadable copy of this show, or you can visit oneplace.com under Ministries. Look for Blazing Grace Radio. If you want help resolving a sexual addiction, you can reach Jason Graves by dialing toll-free 877-590-SOUL. That's 877-590-7685. Julie Dozier can be reached at 719-266-6636. That's 719-266-6636. Get a copy of Mike's book, The Road to Grace, by visiting roadtograce.com. That's the word to and not the number. Desire for a specific subject to be covered on the show? Email Mike Janung at mike@blazinggrace.org. We look forward to sharing more blazing issues and grace-filled answers with you next time. Thank you so very much for listening. Tell a friend about the broadcast. On behalf of Jason, Mike, and Julie, may God richly shine His grace upon you.